All right. Hello and welcome to our lecture. And I'm going to go ahead and get my little slideshow background started here. I hope everybody's doing really well. This is week 11, and we just introduced some of our culminating assignments, including the annotated bibliography. We've been looking at MLA citation this past week, and this lecture, sort of the roadmap for our lecture today is that I'm going to talk about crafting the research question, and that pertains to our assignment this week in week 11, where I'm asking that everyone submit a 3 research questions. So it's your topic, and then 3 issues or questions or sort of those driving queries that you'd like to maybe turn into a thesis. So what this lecture is going to be about is taking those questions and making them drive, giving them some teeth, making them more into a thesis, and how you might use that to outline the body of your paper. I'm not asking that you write a paper in this class. Your annotated bibliography is your paper. But, these are a literature review eventually gets you to the paper. So this will be focusing on how to learn get those skills, down. Research is a process. Research is recursive. You may change your thesis, you may change your idea, you may come across new information or evidence that changes your mind. And that is okay. You can always make that part of the body of your work, and reflect on that in your conclusion. Okay, so let's take a little walk through what the research question. So we talked a little bit about those practical and those conceptual problems in week 10, I think it was, or week 9, but talking about how practical problems push, conceptual problems kind of wrap back around into the practical problem. So if you notice a problem in the world, then you make an observation about it. But if you make an observation, you have to follow it up with evidence, and your evidence needs to be based in reason. So taking a step back to topic here, I included one of your peers' mind maps. I really like this assignment. I wish we could do more visual brainstorming like this. If we were in person, I really enjoy that sort of sharing and peer learning, and gallery walks. So anyway, this is a little bit of more sharing. So this was our mind mapping, our brainstorming. And really, as we're researching and moving through, we're adding more of those bubbles and making more of those connections, and recognizing relationships and seeing how these come together. So if you want to make the assertion that climate change is a driving factor for extreme weather, or that human activity is a driving factor of climate change, wildfires are, and so therefore wildfires are more extreme due to human intervention, stuff like that. So, but we can't just say that, we actually need some evidence to back it up. So whenever I talk about arguments, I want to be clear, because an argument is a conversation. Perhaps you remember long ago, there was a lecture about how scholars tend to disagree with each other, and that's part of the scholarly conversation. So the literature that gets published will build upon each other's works. But when you get down into really these really small niches of scholarly conversation, the scholars will often disagree. But those disagreements are actually criticisms, and criticisms are a they're a good thing in the world. That means somebody's paying attention to your work and that they're recognizing it, and maybe they see a gap where you didn't see. As that's why we do peer reviewing. Okay, that's why we work with with a tutor or a classmate or your professor, because it's impossible to catch everything. So really having a second pair of a third, a fourth, 100 pair of eyes catch what you can't. Anyway, an argument is a conversation with your readers. So remembering who your audience is. I think this week I gave it an example. It was talking about greenhouse gas emissions and methane coming from cows. And I said that if you are a scholar, that's how you talk about it. You use, the words emission, methane, ozone layer. If you use those same words with like a group of, say, fourth graders, and you needed to talk about the importance of climate change and how humans affect their world around them by the choices that they make, you might, use something a little more funny or ear-catching to a little kid, like cow farts. Okay, so these are ways that we recognize and address our audience. And we also need to use clearly state and give citation and follow conventions like MLA or APA or Chicago, or the myriad ways. But for the most part, throughout your at least your scholarly career, you'll use these formats. And the reason is just it's standardized. It makes it easier to read. And as you become a more in-depth reader, you'll be looking for those standards because you're going to want to jump around. Nobody ever said that you've got to read these articles from front to back. Okay, so making a good argument is divided up. So this Craft of Research book, it's one of our supplemental books. It's also available to check out chapters from the Merced College Library. If you want to read more, I condensed it into our lecture today, but if you want to read some more, it is available to check out, and they will email you the chapters in the library. All right, so a claim. So what do you want me to believe, and what's your point? Reasons. Why did you say that? Why should I agree? And evidence. How do you know? And can you back it up? Acknowledgement and response. That's a little bit more of that narrative. It's sort of that scholarly conversation. You're acknowledging other experts. And then warrant. How does that follow? What's your logic? And can you explain your reasoning? So we're going to look at the top three, the closest: claim, reasons, and evidence. So, and I'm going to start backwards and lead up to claim. So a piece of evidence is data employed to support reason. Unlike a claim or a reason, evidence is not always framed as an assertion. So it can be a quote. So, for example, Toni Morrison's Beloved is a seminal piece of literature. And if you use a quote from her book to back up your claim, then that's fine. That's a piece of evidence. And if you were writing a paper about incarcerated or paroled felons getting their right to vote reinstated once they're out of prison, this would be a piece of data that you might want to look at and pull in. So we want to look for that that currency and that timeliness, and that it's concise and clear. So your quote that you're pulling out, it needs to be a well thought quote. So it's something that the reader will be able to understand kind of where you're going with it. There's been a lot of, I've seen a lot of papers where students will throw quotes in and sort of expect you to get what they're going for. And that is not so. If you use a quote, be prepared to provide analysis about that quote. It's not enough for you to throw data or quotes in without follow-up analysis. Okay, so the claim. So a claim, hold on, did I skip? Oh, I'm all, where am I going? I skipped the because. Okay, so reason. So a reason is a statement that leads readers to accept your claim. So this can be practical, it can be conceptual. So let's say, but we can always kind of think of it as the because in the middle. So often you join a claim. So if I claim prison parolees or felons should automatically have the rights to vote restored to them, my reason, my because disenfranchisement affects their ability to participate in a democracy and shape their futures. Okay, so that's my reason. My claim is that parolees should be granted, should be automatically restored their rights to vote. I will need to back that up with evidence. But we can also think of it in much simpler terms. We should leave. That's my claim. It looks like rain, and that's my reason. So these are pretty good examples of how that drives it forward. And then finally, the claim. So when I start off with a claim, I'm going to say, I gave some other examples here. Claims recognize or address a range of questions. Does a thing or situation exist? If so, how do we characterize it? How did it get this way? Is it good or bad? What can or should be done about it? Okay, and we're going to look a little bit closer at those questions, using them as research questions. Okay, so classes of claims. So we can kind of think of these as those conceptual. So our more practical were, it looks like rain, we should leave. Now we have more conceptual, we're thinking claims of fact or existence. So I'm claiming that global warming is due to warming aerosols in our stratosphere and leading to greater UV ray exposure. So I'm claiming that, but I haven't done it because, and I don't have any evidence quite yet, but this is what I'm claiming. I'm claiming that there needs to be some new policy or some action. So inmates upon paroling from prison should be automatically reinstated with the register of voters in their county. Okay, so I'm not saying because yet. I haven't even got there. My claim is just this is how I feel. And I'm going to have to go through the whole paper to get to that concluding part where I have gone through the pros and cons and presented my arguments as to why. Claims of evaluation or appraisal. So I might say Shakespeare's greatest comedy is As You Like It. All right, that's my claim. I haven't made any real assertions yet, or any real, well, that is my assertion, but I haven't made any, provided any reason or evidence yet. Okay, so basically you're starting off with your claim. You're saying inmates upon paroling from prison should be reinstated because disenfranchisement affects their ability to participate in a democracy and shapes their futures. And then here's my evidence that men and women have these different political affiliations, and that society feels quite strongly about that. So the policy will need to go through a referendum support. Okay, so that will be the body of my work. Maybe I'll need to write the paper first, but this is sort of those three kind of research. These are your three kind of guiding outlines for a research question, or sorry, a thesis statement or a research statement, right? So research statements can get quite complex, especially if you're getting into your grad school program and you're doing original research. We just want to form good questions, right? Like, we just want to get to that point where we are feeling secure and confident about writing about our topic, especially when there is information overload. There's information all over the map about our topic. We kind of know where we want to go, but we're just not sure how to connect in a narrative way. Okay, so how do we explain ourselves so that it's, we can write it, make it concise, not be repeating. We can prove our claims. We can connect our reasons and provide supporting evidence. So let's take a step back and let's think of research questions as those guiding questions. And so this example is about social media, on self-esteem and behavior. So research questions help you focus your topic and give you a series of questions that you'll spend your research time answering. You'll create your questions based on the background reading that you do. All right, so as and I must recommend, this is the time when you get out that pencil and paper, or your Word document if you like to type, or your smartphone typing. Yeah, I mean, I'm terrible on this thing, which is why sometimes your grading my comments are terrible, because I like to do it on my phone sometimes, and it's very, very hard. I really admire you guys being able to do all of the work that you do on your smartphones. But this is the time when you take notes, when you outline, when you build that outline with your research questions. Okay, and I'll show you a little bit more about how that looks. But let's take a look at that research topic. So the research questions to define your topic. So going back, so remember, information is recursive. So we're looking back at our topic again. Why do people engage with social media? Has social media changed the way people interact with each other? And let's, we can sub in any of our topics here. How has artificial intelligence changed the way people interact? How do people engage with Facebook? And I like to use, and I purposely chose Facebook as one of the topics because I believe social media is too broad, and I think that each of these companies is a world unto themselves. So I deliberately chose Facebook. So if you are doing that one, I really want you to focus in on that. It's let me back up here too. One thing that the research questions do are help you narrow. And again, because it's easy to go down the rabbit hole, it's really easy to get distracted when you're researching. Narrowing your scope of your reasons or your evidence, narrowing the scope of your topic is essential. So research questions help you move that along. What major theories are related to Facebook, or related to maybe searching behaviors, or related to adolescent depression, or what are some of the major guiding maybe disciplines that you want to use the lens to narrow in on? What scholars or experts are conducting research on your topic, and what are the major findings being developed by the current research. So these are, examine your topic with these lenses, and it will help you, and write it down. Get that outline started. And this is a great way as well. I've used this outline for a long time, and I will make all these slides available on the lecture page. So you can open these up, you can print them however you'd like. I really like these sort of guiding, the 5 W's that we were talking about. This sort of maps it out for you. So here you have your introductory and defining questions. Next, you move into your body and analysis questions. And finally, your concluding questions. There's also some great language peppered throughout that you are welcome to utilize. You always need to be framing this in your own language, and you need to be editing. Also, I'm going to say this a couple times, and I've said it in the lecture this week too. You may want to meet with a tutor. We'll look at that together at the end of this slideshow because I've embedded some links. But meeting with a tutor, they can hold your hand, they can bounce ideas off with you, answer those questions that you don't feel like asking me. I get it. I know I'm your instructor, but you are always welcome to sit with me, and I'll be happy to look at your topic, and we can walk through and really devise some strong guiding questions. So what is the topic? Okay, so what is Facebook? Okay, so this is after you've framed your thesis. Okay, so you've said you've made your claim, your reason, and now you're ready to start entering in some of those pieces of evidence. All right, anyway, so what is Facebook and searching behavior? Or what is climate change and methane emissions? What are some of the many topics we were using? See, that's why I miss you guys, because I would be asking you to help me at this point. Okay, so why is climate change an important issue? We should probably really have a better, more narrow definition of climate change, but why are methane emissions an important issue? What background information is necessary to understand, and what are the different types of? Okay, generally speaking, that indicates that we have a general knowledge, general working knowledge. We have knowledge about what our current, what are some of the current issues, what is the general definition, what are some of the vocabulary, main concepts that are going to feed into your readers' understanding of this topic. Okay, so then the body of the paper. So these are those analysis questions. And again, this is a little bit more of an argumentative paper. If you were doing an informative paper, you don't really have to get too far beyond background information and outlining the issues. Okay, an informative paper is something that is going to it may touch on certain issues, but you're not really going and providing a whole lot of evidence. When you're doing an analysis or an argumentative paper, you need to provide those pieces of evidence that support your reason and support your claim. And these are often called pro-cons. And pro-con will demonstrate that you've explored both sides of the issue. So I want to deviate for just 1 second and say one problem with a thesis that I've noticed over time is that students will often cherry pick their research so that it fits within their idea. Um, a really good argumentative paper acknowledges that there's flaws in every argument, whether it's for or against. There's holes because we're human, and there's no absolute right or wrong. Sorry, guys. I hope I'm not blowing anybody's mind. I doubt it. But there is no such thing as an absolutely right or absolutely wrong. So acknowledging the argument or acknowledging the issues from both perspectives or multiple perspectives. I shouldn't even make it so black and white or one side versus the other. Oftentimes there are a myriad of issues. So they don't necessarily have to be pro climate change or against climate change. It can be more about like talking about dairy farmers, and they're they don't make very much money, so how can they how could they maybe feed their cattle differently so they don't have those emissions. Whereas I might say, yes, we need to curb those emissions by changing the cattle feed to something that promotes less gas, uh, and you can do it through these other economically and environmentally stable foods. Great, there's my pro. But recognizing the con that there are drawbacks to everything. Okay, great. So we need to acknowledge those conceptual problems. And again, this is where writing it out, outlining, providing an outline, and you can use this template even. Okay, you can't write this. Your paper cannot look like this. But your template or your draft can look like however you want. But when it comes to being turned in, it needs to be, all pretty and MLA formatted and cited, and all your punctuation and grammar properly done. Finally, your conclusion. The conclusion is really your reflective portion. And this is where you can say, based on my research, I ultimately think that emissions can be curbed by changing the cattle feed, but that there will be a lot of pushback and it may take a long time. Okay, so something a little more evolved from that, but and why? So this again, this sort of reflective part. The conclusion is really the only part where you should and can use the first person. So if you do want to say, I ultimately think, or what I think should be done. This is the time when you need to do it or can do it. But by and large, you really should not be using the first person. You really should not be saying, well, I think it's an important issue because. No, that is not the standard academic speak. You need to write in you need to use those transitions that we spoke about. I think I put them in our lecture, but I really appreciate some good grammar transitions. And these are simple, like according to, or otherwise, as a rule, for the most part, generally speaking, specifically, in the long run, to sum up, to summarize, yet, however, I provided a link. I think I provided this link. There is no shame in using whatever tools you can to help you develop that academic speak. So these are called transitional words. And when we are using our academic, when we're writing for our academic audience, which is inevitably what the annotated bibliography is for, and for any of your papers in throughout your college and your professional career. Okay, so if your boss was asking you to write business proposal or to do rewrite the mission statement for your company, you can't be like, well, I think my company's great. It's pretty bad because they hired me, and therefore I think it's good and you should spend your money here, right? Like, we know that. But learning how to speak differently takes time. It's learning a new language. It really, really is learning a new language. So, give yourself a break, but practice. You need to practice these different words and, bring them into your lexicon. So again, I talk a little bit about note taking, saving citations. I created I think it was about a 10-minute lecture on generated citations. And I may do, I think I may do a outlining, an outlining edition. But as you're collecting your information, make sure that you are getting the ball rolling. And a draft or an outline is a wonderful way to do it. For me, it's the only way to do it. There's no diving straight into typing a paper, especially if it's a 10-page paper on a complex topic. Give yourself time to make that outline, pull in other quotes, pull in other experts, read the citations or the works cited that the other authors used, and let those guiding questions, help you to write that outline. All right, and finally, asking for help. So I want to talk a bit about the tutoring center. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the tutoring center. It looks a little different these days, just because everything is remote learning, but you can do a drop-in with a face-to-face tutor, and it is mostly behind, let's see, I need to get out of this into my Chrome, and I may need to stop sharing for a minute, because I think I need to, yes, close that screen out, and move into our Canvas shell. All right, now I'm going to share again. Okay. So, oh yes, tutoring. So when if we want to create a tutoring appointment, over here on the left-hand side, my page looks just a little bit different from yours, but there is this Smart Thinking online tutoring. And it's going to take a little while to upload, and it'll ask you to sign in. I wish I had this all open and I lost it because I had to, oh, okay, there we go. Okay, so the browsers that are accepted, all that good jazz. So what's nice about Smart Thinking is you can choose to work with a tutor, all right? So you could submit a question if you are at home and you're, say, stuck on a understanding a particular concept, or maybe getting started writing a conclusion. This is a wonderful way to get get some online, and it is in person. It's just, remote. Okay, and you can also submit a paper. So you can submit my writing document, so resume or grammar and documentation review. So you come here and you can upload your annotated bibliography. Okay, here's my information. Here's my course name. I'm going to say LRNR 30, annotated bibliography. Stuck on getting the analysis right on my 5th citation. Okay, whatever. You don't even have to include that. If you just want somebody to go through and provide some feedback about your paper before it gets to me, that's great. Save you points, save you lots of time. I know this is a 100-point assignment, which is pretty significant. It's actually a little bit more than that, really. The annotated bibliography that we're turning in is 100 points, but this is a 20-point assignment this week for submitting your research topic. And the following week, there is another 20-point assignment. So we're really getting closer to, 150 points for this assignment. So do not let yourself get behind. And I know that I've been a pretty easy grader, but because this is our culminating paper, I will be grading according to the rubric. And that means that there will be specific details that I need to have followed, including that it is formatted properly. If it's not, you will lose points. If you don't do all 6, you will lose points. If they're not from the resource that I'm asking, if it's not a, clearly stated a newspaper or news site, it's not clearly a journal, it's not clearly a peer-reviewed journal, because remember, we need 1 peer-reviewed journal. So that said, let me go ahead and visit the assignment. So this is good for me too, because I work very hard to craft these assignments, but sometimes, again, I just seeing it again, is good to sort of cement it in my brain too. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send me an email, chat with me, send me a pronto, however you like to talk. Okay, so let's take a quick look. So the source types, I'm asking for 6 sources, and so 2 scholarly journals. So we've looked at, EBSCO and some of those library databases, Google Scholar, and those are fine for, getting you the research, but I really want you to recognize, look at that anatomy of a scholarly journal. I think I have it embedded elsewhere. I think I re-embedded it last week or the week before when we did reading research. Look for those components of the scholarly article, because it may not always be very explicit, but look for language, use the CRAP test, okay, to decipher. And again, like Academic OneFile and EBSCO often identify it as a peer review. So use that peer-reviewed item. So I need one, and then another scholarly source. Next, news. So, and I want to be clear, I'm really looking for credible sources. So we've talked a lot about news sources. We've talked a lot about using that media hierarchy. And these are ways that we really need to put on our critical thinking cap. So most of the time, if you're going through maybe New York Times or Newsbank, or even EBSCO has tons of newspapers. SIRS also, you can refine and limit to only newspapers, but be aware of bias. And in this case, I'm not going to be able to measure the bias, and I'm not really measuring bias because you are allowed to do pro-con, argumentative. So if you would like to pull in something that's a little more biased, but remember, it's something it's going to be that has to be used as part of your argument. It can't be just willy-nilly thrown in there. All right, so a government or organization like a nonprofit, I'm thinking Pew Research Center, I'm thinking Center for Disease Control, I'm thinking using an advanced Google search and finding a .gov site or a .org site. So if you say typed in artificial intelligence .gov and locate it that way in Google Advanced Search, that is what I'm looking for. There are also a lot of government publications on in OneSearch in the catalog, and there's also a lot of government documents in Nexus Uni and SIRS. And I won't have time today, well, at least not in this lecture block, to do the legal research portion, but I'll be posting that after this. All right, so a magazine or a trade publication, and this needs to be from the research database. So items like opposing viewpoints, or excuse me, databases like opposing viewpoints, oh, what else? I'm just blanking for a minute. SIRS, any of those sort of exploratory and topical databases, EBSCO, you can always refine OneSearch. Sorry, it's all coming back to me now. You can always refine over on the left or the right-hand sides to magazines, all right? And some of you even have trade journals, trade publications. And those are nice because they give you, say, a more professional or corporate scope. All right, and then a book. So ebooks are available through OneSearch, through the catalog, and they're also available through the EBSCO ebooks. So that's through the A to Z. So I may go through and do a quick tutorial on where to access some of these. I feel like at this point you guys should be more familiar, but I also recognize that your comfortability may still be a little shaky. So I'll do a couple little tutorials on how to find ebooks, and maybe one on government, although look again at the Google Advanced Search tutorial for that. Not Google Scholar, but Google Advanced Search, looking for and applying the .gov. All right, this goes into more of the statement, okay? So we just talked about that. So that was what the bulk of our lecture was today. So hopefully you should have a little better idea about what I'm looking for when I'm asking for those research questions, those issues, and attempting a thesis. And when I say attempt, also I want you to keep in mind that that this progression, this part one of our progression, is really more like a conversation between you and I. I'm going to grade closely. I'm going to read your topics closely, and I'm going to make suggestions based on what I've been seeing on this topic, and maybe what I know about you that you might be interested in, and also maybe guide you if I feel like, ew, that's not going to match so well. I'm also asking that if you decided to do your own topic, that's okay, but to wrap that back in with the 4. So we had artificial intelligence, Facebook, climate change, and one other one. I can't remember right now. I think I put it up here. And all right, so for the annotation itself, so the annotation is what goes underneath the citation. And that is a 3 parts. So it needs to be at least 150 words each citation. And that shouldn't be hard to do. You may go over, which is okay. I'm not looking for whole papers on each citation. That's not the point of an annotated bibliography. They're brief, 2 to 3 sentence for each item. So your summaries, 2 to 3 sentences. Evaluation is 2 to 3 sentences. And your reflection and usefulness of its topic to your, or of the research to your topic or your thesis or your research questions. Okay, that's where you state it. You can say, I could use this for my research question, for my pro-con. I could use this for my introduction, for my background information. Okay, so identify the usefulness of where that plays in with your research question. Okay, and I do break that down a little bit further in the body right here. Okay, also in the video. I think that's where I state the 4 topics. Lastly, I wanted to point toward the prompt, because this is the audience. This is the audience that we need to acknowledge. So this would be if we were in our English 10 critical thinking and studies class. So an advanced English class, right? So we're doing some advanced stuff. It's true, but anything can be done. Anything can be advanced. But they always rest on foundational concepts and ideas, okay? So take it one step at a time. You're in an English 10 critical thinking class, assigned an argumentative paper about a controversial and current issue related to your topic. So the paper would be 10 pages and you got to cite 10 sources, and you outline the argument and evidence to support your claims. Okay, so you're not doing 10 sources, you're doing 6. This is just if you were writing the paper. 10-page paper obviously is going to have more than 6 sources. 10-page paper is that's a really good academic assignment. You'll face those down and you'll do great, because you'll remember those foundational guiding questions. Okay. So that is it. That's what I'm going to say about our assignment here. Now I assigned it for November 22nd. I feel like that's doable. I feel like we can reach that goal, guys. I don't think anybody that's hanging tough right now in this class, I don't think anybody could not meet that goal. Okay. So again, I will be grading this with a more critical eye. So I'm encouraging you to either, do a draft, do an outline, talk to me, talk to your peers, reach out to your peer who you did your peer learning, your personal learning history with, your peer review. Reach out in the comments section. Maybe you like what so-and-so said in the habits of mind discussion. Maybe you reach out to them and say, hey, what's your topic like? What are you doing? What is she even talking about? Okay. It's on you. I know you can do it. You got this. It's not, a literature review is an important part of your research assignments to come in the future. So getting this under your belt will only prove helpful. All right, I do want to touch just a little bit on MLA citation. I know this video is going to go just a little bit longer today, but I wanted to review our, let me get where I want to get. Okay, So right, our assignment for MLA citations. So I wanted to do a couple of examples for you. I wasn't really looking for that. Sorry, like all my personal work is coming up. Okay. Oh yes, there it is. The practice template. So I wanted to use, I don't know if you guys can see my, Denise, can you see the MLA practice template?
Right now,
Or is it just the mod, this is just the Canvas modules?
it's just the Canvas module for now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay.
Now I can see it.
So thank you. You rock. So super kudos to Denise, you guys. I can't do this alone. It's really very helpful whenever I have students in the room with me. Okay, so I'm going to do just a couple of quick examples for citations. So this particular example, this is the Isabel Wilkerson, The Warmth of Other Suns. Books are usually pretty easy. Oh, I don't know the in Safari, unfortunately. So I just want to identify a couple of quick things because, you know, everything is on here. I'm going to stop sharing. In fact, everything is online. There are some print items that I want to draw your attention to. So when we are citing a print item, books are the easiest. You're doing the author name. Okay. Isabel Wilkerson. So it's going to be Wilkerson. Great. Last name, comma, first name, Isabel. If there's multiple authors, I'm going to do a comma and then the first name and the last name. It looks a little different. So use that MLA handbook to guide you. All right. Also, so if we've got our book here, a little quick anatomy. We have our title page. Okay, title page. This is, I also want to draw your attention down to that little watermark down here. This is the publisher. So sometimes they give multiple publishers on the back. So always refer to that front one on the title page. Okay. And here is the verso. So the verso is where they provide all the publication information, including the date, which is where the copyright symbol is, right here. They also say the publisher and sometimes the ISBN if you need it, but we don't need that for MLA. We don't even need the location anymore. So we're just grabbing the publisher and the year and we're done. Okay, so books are pretty easy to use. So let's look at something maybe a little more complex. Here I'll use this online searching, a guide to finding quality information efficiently and effectively, second edition. Here's my title page again, my watermark down at the bottom. And then I'm going to go to the verso for any continuing information. Right. So this is also available through the bibliographic record that you're probably familiar with on, get rid of this, which you're probably a little more familiar with on OneSearch. Okay, so if we go and we type in our search and find an example there, using that template to fill in the containers through MLA is a wonderful, easy way to cite. So also when we're making those in-text citations, okay, so here's that bibliographic record with all that similar information right down here, okay? So I wanted to point this out, so if you ever get into a bind where you don't have the information to cite, it's often in the catalog record here, okay? All right, so, oh, I wanna point out a couple of other things. So in-text citation is not something that we got to talk too much about, but this is where we cite. So whenever we actually use a work or a quote, we need to indicate where we got it from. So I'm going to go ahead and click on in-text citations through Purdue OWL. And if you're not familiar with Purdue OWL is one of the gold standards. I do recommend the MLA site itself, but Purdue OWL provides lots of excellent examples within. And so when we're doing, so here's your author, so Wordsworth, stated, blah, 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 quote, 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 page number, all right? Also, this is called parenthetical citation. So anytime something is in parentheses, it's called parenthetical. Okay, so sometimes we have to make decisions if we say have multiple authors, maybe we want to switch up by stating our authors right in the beginning, or stating them or beginning with the subject and then the quote and then the authors. But you need to indicate who is being cited, and that is how we tie it back into our works cited. So then when we go to look at our works cited, our list of citations, we're able to indicate Wordsworth right away. Okay, so sometimes we will not know the author, especially if we have a government. Okay, so if we're using like a government agency, you're going to use either the title of the article, or you're going to use the title of the editor. Okay, or the title. Here's an example of the title of the article. All right. So I think that I mentioned this before, but you will want to have these resources maybe bookmarked or on the tip of your tongue, because they are where you need to refer. There's simply no way to know every single time. And it's helpful to know, oh, I can go to Purdue OWL, I can go to my LRNR research guide and find out the answer to that. You can also chat with a librarian too. So if you go to the library homepage and go to chat, you can send us a chat. All right. So in the annotated bibliography, if you do say bring in a quote from Toni Morrison or whomever, you do need to do an in-text citation. So if for your evidence, you found this great statistic about inmates and their recidivism rates are 10 times better because they are allowed to vote, and so they don't reoffend. You find this great piece of data. So you're going to say, Wordsworth stated that felons do not reoffend because they're given the right to vote due to this research done by Mellon and Mellon in 2016. Okay, so this is where you're going to cite that quote, that in-text citation. All right, that's actually something totally different too. That was actually an indirect citation. And an indirect citation is, say, if a person is citing another person in their work. All right. So if that article that I was reading was citing Mellon and Mellon, that would be an indirect citation, and I actually do that just a little bit differently. Okay, so here's it right here. So quoted in Mellon and Mellon, and the page number that I got that from the article. Okay, so there are nuances, and these are very helpful guides to help you get there. Again, if you want to invest in the MLA handbook, I recommend it, even though it's sort of changing, but I don't think your professors are all going to switch over right away. So it wouldn't be a bad thing to invest in. Okay, yeah, right. Non-print or sources from the internet. So you'll want to follow these guidelines. Again, these are all located on the LRNR 30 guide. Also a link to the MLA handbook here. Okay. So that said, I think I packed it in pretty well. Let me look at my notes and make sure. I will do a little tutorial on finding the government sites, and I will also do a little tutorial on finding books and ebooks, simply because it's COVID and everything is a little different right now. I would, in this assignment previously, I'd have students go in and actually check out the book, or we would go into the library together and look for material that way. So, you know, I'm a little sad that we aren't able to do it that way, but there are quite a few sources in between. And I'll do that tutorial, and I'll also stick that in here too. So as long as you know how to get to one search, you should be okay. But here are like our reference electronic books. So encyclopedias that are available electronically, and some that are more discipline specific. All right. So that said, I think that's it for our lecture today, guys. I appreciate you hanging tough. I know there was a lot of information in there. I will upload the slides when I upload the lecture. Once I get it, it has to be transcribed for captions, and has to go to the cloud and be saved, and then downloaded, and then uploaded, and it's kind of a process. So bear with me, but I hope to get it up either tonight or early tomorrow. As always, I am here for you. I am ready to answer your questions. Just send me an email, send me a hello. You know, I'm pretty laid back. So I would be, if you don't have time to meet on the weekdays, I would meet with you during the weekend. Saturdays are tough for me. Sundays are actually better. Sundays I have more availability to meet, which is kind of opposite this year. But anyhow, all right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording, and I will see you soon.